Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Just while everyone's locking in their here on Zoom, I just want to welcome everyone to tonight's program. It's called Five Wishes, Aging with Dignity, excuse me. My name is Nazla Rex. I'm the Adult Services Specialist here at the Pennington Public Library. We're so glad you could join us tonight from the comfort of your home. Tonight's program is presented in wonderful collaboration with our partners at Hopewell Valley Senior Services, and we're incredibly grateful for their support in bringing this event to our community. As we're settling in, tell us in the chat where you're tuning in from tonight and maybe what brought you to this evening's presentation. We often think about planning for the future in terms of finances or property, but some of the most important plans we can make are about our personal, emotional, and medical wishes. So while most people agree that having these conversations is incredibly important, taking that first step can feel daunting. So tonight is all about giving yourself and the people you love the peace of mind that comes with the gift of conversation. You will also learn how to access a free Five Wishes document, which serves as a simple guide and becomes a legally valid advance directive once completed and signed. So to guide us tonight, we're joined by Paul Knight. He's a certified Five Wishes presenter, and he brings a wealth of warmth and expertise to this topic. Paul has many years of experience leading seminars and workshops on various topics and is certified by the nonprofit organization Aging with Dignity to give talks on advanced care planning and Five Wishes. He's also the facilitator of the Transition to Retirement group at the Center for Modern Aging in Princeton. And before I turn it over to him, a quick bit of Zoom housekeeping before we begin. We'll have time for your questions at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to type them into the chat box at any point during the talk, and we'll address as many as we can during our Q&A. And with that, I would like to give a warm virtual welcome to Paul Knight. Paul, I will hand things over to you.
Nazla, thank you very much. I'm going to bring up my slides now and then start talking about them. I really appreciate you joining us this evening. I won't introduce myself. That would be redundant. Nazla did a great job with that. I wanted to just explain first that there are a few handouts that go with this presentation. And so if you're one of those people who has registered and is listening live, then those handouts will be available to you anytime after 10 o'clock tomorrow morning at the Pennington Library. If you registered and you're listening to a recording, there's also a set of handouts reserved for you. If you are listening to the recording and you never registered for the live program, then there aren't any handouts for you, but the most important handout, the Five Wishes booklet itself, you can order at fivewishes.com, and then you can do everything that I'm suggesting that you do during this presentation. Nazla mentioned, I think that I'm retired. I've been retired about 12 years now. And one of the benefits of being retired is that it provides the opportunity to ask what I could spend my time doing based only on what seems worthwhile, as opposed to what somebody's going to pay me to do. And so this is one of my answers to that question, doing talks like this as a volunteer with Aging with Dignity. I'm a believer in the importance of advanced care planning. And by that, I mean having conversations with our loved ones and our healthcare providers about how we want to be taken care of in the final days of our lives and documenting those decisions. So what I'm going to be talking about is why you might want to do that for yourself if you haven't already, and tell you about a particularly effective tool for facilitating those advanced care conversations called Five Wishes. So here are the topics I'm going to cover today. I'll define what I mean by advanced care planning. I'll talk about why it's important, and I'll introduce you to this tool called Five Wishes, tell you how to make use of it, and what steps you should take to ensure that you get the full benefit of your advanced care conversations. We're going to take questions at the end of the presentation, but as Nazla mentioned, if you have a question anytime along the line, you can put them into the chat and then we'll address them at the end. When I'm doing this presentation live, I ask people to raise their hands if they've ever had to make care decisions for another person who was unable to make those decisions for themselves. And typically, at least half the people in the audience raise their hand. And when I ask them what that was like, I very often hear that it's stressful. And sometimes it can be contentious. If two different members of the family have different ideas about what the person who is ill would want and not want, that can be very difficult for the family. When the time comes, our loved ones want to do the right thing. But if we haven't told them what our preferences are, then they may not know what the right thing looks like. And it can be especially fraught, as I said, when different people have different ideas about what that is. I'll tell you my story. A good friend of mine, Joan, shared with me the Five Wishes booklet that I'm going to be talking about today many years ago. And I read through it, and it seemed, frankly, a bit touchy-feely for my taste, and I didn't really think it was my cup of tea, didn't think it was relevant to me, and I put it aside. And then some years later, my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it was clear that we were going to need an advance directive for him. So I asked my lawyer to provide one, and he sent me something, one page. When I read it, it was so cold and legalistic, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I didn't even want to show it to my father. And that's when I remembered the Five Wishes document. I went back to it, and now I was looking at it through different eyes. I realized at that point that this document was relevant, it was empathetic, it was compassionate, and it was comprehensive. So I showed it to my father. He was happy to fill it out. My mother filled one out. Since then, my wife and I have both done the same thing. And then last year, the Five Wishes organization sent out an email to people who'd used Five Wishes saying that they were starting a program to certify people who wanted to make presentations about advanced care planning. And that seemed like a really worthwhile thing for me. And I signed up. I got their training. I did a demonstration presentation for them on Zoom, and I ended up being certified. And I've done about 15 talks like this over the last year and a half. I want to start by defining my terms. So advanced care planning, at its most basic, is the process of talking through and making decisions about what kind of medical care and treatments we would want or not want when we're at the end of our lives. And two, designating the person who will make decisions on our behalf if we're not able to do that ourselves. Now, one of the key points I want you to take away from this presentation is that it's not just a matter of making those decisions and documenting them, though it is that. It's about talking about them with the people who are important to you, looping them in, bringing them along with your thinking, making sure they are clear on what your preferences are. They may not have the same perspectives you do. And, if the first time they ever hear about your preferences is when you can no longer share them and they're reading them in a written document, that may not make them entirely comfortable. It might not be persuasive. So if they've heard it from you, then they'll really know that it's what you want. Another important point is that advanced care planning is not a one-time event, because things change. We'll experience changes in our health. For example, at some point, we might get a serious diagnosis. There can be changes to our family or our network of support, like a divorce, a marriage, or deaths of people who are close to us. And there may be changes in our own preferences as we get older or as our situation changes. So the recommendation is that you think in terms of these 7 Ds and revisit your advanced care decisions when you have a decade birthday, the death of a loved one, a divorce, a diagnosis of a serious illness, the onset of a disability, after being discharged from the hospital, or when you experience a significant decline in your health. So here I am talking about advanced care planning. And the question I'd ask you to consider is, what are the kinds of people that I ought to be talking to about this? Who are the kinds of people who should be thinking about advanced care planning? The answer may surprise some of you, because all the experts say every adult over 18. Obviously, the best time to do advanced care planning is before you face a health crisis. But as I know you know, life is unpredictable. Anything can happen at any time. So the best way to ensure that you've done this prior to when you need to do it is to do it now. So I'd like to step through the benefits of advanced care planning. First of all, it helps ensure that you or whoever you're supporting in making these decisions, if it's somebody else like a parent, receive care at the end of life that matches your or their preferences and priorities. That you're not subjected to treatments at the end of life that you would not have approved of. That you do get the care and treatments you do want at the end of life. And that your loved ones and other significant others in your life, as well as healthcare providers, are prepared to make decisions that are consistent with the decisions you would have made if you were able to. You may find some of these statistics surprising. I know I did. There was a report in 2014 from the Institute of Medicine that showed that 70% of older adults who need to make medical treatment decisions are not able to do so for themselves. They may be unconscious, their cognition may be compromised, and a review of multiple studies in 2017 on advanced care planning found that 2/3 of adults in the United States had never discussed their end-of-life care preferences with their loved ones or their doctors. And that's despite the fact that around 80% of Americans who have been surveyed agree that these kinds of conversations are important. There have been multiple surveys done over decades that show that when people are asked what their priorities would be when they're near the end of their lives, these are the things that come to the top of the list. They want to be kept comfortable. They almost certainly want their pain to be managed properly, but there may be other things related to their physical comfort that are important to them. They often want the people they care about to be with them. They want the dignity and autonomy that comes with having a say in how they're cared for. And they often have personal or spiritual commitments that they want fulfilled. But a typical boilerplate advance directive, like the one my lawyer prepared for my father, doesn't actually address most of those things. So now we've talked about advanced care planning. What is 5 Wishes? It is a document template. It's a 12-page booklet that guides you through advanced care planning. It facilitates the process of thinking through and communicating what matters to you. It doesn't tell you what matters to you, but it kind of prompts your own thinking about that so you can make well-considered decisions. And once it's been completed, it is, as Nazla mentioned, a legal advanced directive, and it also addresses personal, emotional, and spiritual needs. Some people have called it the advanced directive with a heart and soul. 5 Wishes was actually inspired by the work that Mother Teresa did with dying people. The fellow who was her lawyer, Jim Towey, who later became her biographer, was inspired by the way that Mother Teresa insisted on maintaining human dignity near the end of life. And he ended up founding this nonprofit organization, Aging with Dignity. And that group, with help from the American Bar Association and healthcare experts, created Five Wishes a little more than 25 years ago as a way of helping to preserve human dignity at the end of life. It's available in many different languages. It's been used by millions of people. Here's what's addressed by Five Wishes. One, choosing the person that you want making healthcare decisions for you if and when the time comes that you can't make those decisions for yourself. Two, the kind of medical treatment that you want or don't want in an end-of-life situation. Three, how you prefer to be kept comfortable. Four, how you want people to treat you and interact with you. And five, what you want your loved ones to know. So in short, Five Wishes provides guidance to the people who are likely to be around you and involved in your care so that they know how you want to be cared for, both medically and personally. Now, as I mentioned earlier, everyone who's viewing this presentation live, or even those who have registered and are viewing the recording, will be able to go to the Pennington Library anytime after 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's the 23rd of July, to pick up a Five Wishes booklet and other handouts. And if you're, this page just shows you a little illustration of what those handouts entail. First of all, there's a table called 4 Documents That All Adults Should Have. And I'll just tell you that those 4 documents are a durable power of attorney for healthcare, a living will, a financial power of attorney, and a last will and testament. And if you go to any estate attorney, they will tell you those are the 4 documents everybody should have. Five Wishes includes the first 2 of those, a durable power of attorney for healthcare and a living will, once it's been completed and signed. And then you probably want to work with an attorney on a financial power of attorney and a last will and testament. The second handout is the Five Wishes booklet itself, which we'll go through in detail in a moment. And then there are some patient education guides, because one of the things that we have to decide about our advanced care planning is what kind of treatments we would want or not want when we're close to the end of our lives. But a lot of people don't have in-depth information about what those treatments are, things like tube feeding and hydration and intubation and ventilation and CPR. So those handouts contain detailed information about what those procedures are, when they're used, and what the pros and cons and risks of those procedures are. Then finally, there's just a one-pager called Five Wishes Next Step, which lists all the actions that you should take after this presentation if you decide to use the Five Wishes booklet. So I want to start by going right to Wish 1. And it is the person I want to make healthcare decisions for me when I can't make them for myself. Wish 1 lets you name a person you trust to act on your behalf. So legally, this part of Five Wishes is a durable power of attorney for healthcare, also known as a designation of a healthcare agent. It names and legally authorizes a chosen representative to make healthcare decisions for a person in the event that they become unable to communicate their treatment choices. This is called different things in different states: healthcare decision maker, healthcare proxy, representative, surrogate. Now you'll see on this page that there is also a second and third choice name. And that's not because you ever want to have more than one healthcare agent. It's because if the person you have chosen is unavailable or unwilling for any reason to play that role, you still have 2 other people that role can fall to, and make sure that you're covered. At the bottom of that page that we were just looking at, there's a section called Picking the Right Person to be Your Healthcare Agent. And this is important enough that I'm going to read it out loud, and I invite you to just follow along on the slide. Choose someone who knows you very well, cares about you, and who can make difficult decisions. A spouse or a family member may not be the best choice because they're too emotionally involved. Sometimes they are the best choice. You know best. Choose someone who is able to stand up for you so that your wishes are followed. Also, choose someone who is likely to be nearby so they can help when you need them. Whether you choose a spouse, family member, or friend as your healthcare agent, make sure you talk about these wishes and be sure that this person agrees to respect and follow your wishes. Your healthcare agent should be at least 18 years or older. In Colorado, it's 21 years or older, and should not be your healthcare provider, including the owner or operator of a health or residential or community care facility serving you, an employee or spouse of an employee of your healthcare provider, or serving as an agent or proxy for 10 or more people, unless he or she is your spouse or close relative. Now, at this point, I want to play a video for me that I think does a pretty good job of demonstrating the challenges and the decisions that need to go into picking your healthcare agent.
Be your healthcare proxy? Like if you need someone to tell the doctor what to? I just go with whatever the doctors say. I wouldn't want to bother them. They're so busy. Doctors know best, right?
Be your healthcare proxy? Sure, I'd be happy to. If I'm in town, check out my Instagram pics from Peru. Wish you were here.
Oh, I could never let you go. I can't even throw a plant away. As long as it's got one little green leaf. I'd be like, can't we upload her to the cloud?
Well, heck yeah! I've given this a lot of thought. Let me tell you what decisions you're best off going with. You never let them resuscitate you. And if they even try to hook you up to one of those breathing machines, never! I got this! I totally got this!
How can you even talk about this? I can't, okay? I just can't. Mom, it's not like you're gonna die. No, I can't talk right now.
Oh wait, did I show you that meme from iFunny? The cat and the dishwasher? Oh my gosh, okay. So the cat's like, bleh, and then he's like, wah! Oh wait, sorry, what?
Well, hon, you and I have been through so much together. Here's what we'll do. We'll sit down, we'll get a cup of coffee, and you tell me what matters to you.
Well, it wouldn't be easy. I mean, I'd be sad, but I'd have your back.
I remember when we went through this with Mom, we really spoke for her. So I think I can do that for you. Let's talk about what you would want.
The Conversation Project is another organization, another nonprofit that helps promote advanced care planning, and they're the ones who did this video. So now we're on to the page 5 in the booklet, which lists the kinds of decisions that a healthcare agent might need to make for someone. There's a blank area below the text that you see on the screen where you can write in any changes or additions or limitations on your healthcare agent's powers. Now, that said, I have heard recommendations from experts that you not limit the powers of your healthcare agent. And that's because you can't possibly anticipate all the circumstances that might have a bearing on the decisions your healthcare agent might need to make. For example, I know of a woman who had listed in her 5 wishes that she did not want to be in a nursing home. But then she had a healthcare crisis that required treatment that was going to be successful and she would be able to leave the facility, but the place where she needed to get that rehab was in a nursing home. So that made things particularly difficult for her healthcare agent. I'm going to give you a moment to just read through this slide so that you can get a sense of what's on the list and think about who the best person might be to carry out these tasks. One thing that's really important to understand is when a durable power of attorney for healthcare takes effect. A designation of a healthcare agent only goes into effect when doctors have determined that a person is unable to make their own medical decisions. And if they regain the ability to make and communicate their decisions, the designation of healthcare agent is no longer in effect. Now, in most states, if a patient has not previously designated a healthcare agent, the law determines who will be asked to make medical decisions on that person's behalf. These laws vary from state to state, but they usually name a hierarchy of relatives. In New Jersey, the law is not nearly that explicit. It implies that decisions would be made by the patient's physician, family members, or other appropriate parties based on the patient's known wishes and best interests. Now, what that means in practice is that designating a healthcare agent is especially important for anyone who wouldn't feel comfortable being represented by the person that state law recognizes as their decision maker, or in New Jersey, the person that a doctor would be most likely to turn to make those decisions. Now on to Wish 2. Wish 2 helps you communicate what life support means to you and which life support treatments you would want or not want in different end-of-life situations. It serves as instructions for your healthcare agent. You may have heard this referred to as a living will. So the first part of Wish 2 is on the screen now, and you'll see that it lets you say what you want your caregivers to keep in mind and what life support treatment means to you. This is another opportunity to customize the document to clarify or give more details about what your wishes are with regard to life support. I'm just going to give you a chance to read through this slide. Now, on the next page, you can specify, and this is still part of Wish 2, whether you would want life support treatments under several different circumstances. Expected to die within a short period of time, in a coma and not expected to come out of it, permanent and severe brain damage and not expected to recover. And as you can see, for each of these three scenarios, you can specify that you want to have life support treatment, you do not want life support treatment, or you want to have life support treatment if your doctor believes it could help, but that you want your doctor to stop giving you life support treatment if it's not helping your health condition or your symptoms. And finally, if there's any other condition under which you would not want to have life support treatment, there's a space at the bottom of this page below the text that you're looking at here where you can write in what that is. In this section, in Wish 2, there is an advisory with the title, "In Case of an Emergency," and you can see it at the bottom of the slide. This has to do with out-of-hospital DNRs and something called POLST, Physician Orders for Life Supportive Treatments. And this is distinct from a living will. A living will says, I may be in fine health now, but at some point in the future, if I am in an end-of-life situation, here's what I would want and not want. But there are some people who are not in great shape now. They already know that they have an end stage condition. They may know that they've been diagnosed with cancer or liver disease, and they only have a few months to live. They need a different document, not a living will that talks about someday maybe, but really what they would want if something were to happen tomorrow. And that's what a POLST form is. It says, I would not want certain treatments if I were to have a medical emergency. If the EMTs come, I don't want them to do CPR, or I don't want to be intubated, and so on. And that's a form that you fill out with your physician. And if it applies to you, it's because you're really within the last 6 to 12 months of your life. I said before that the designation of a healthcare agent from WISH-1 only goes into effect if a patient is unable to make their own medical decisions. That's also true of a living will, like WISH-2. But there's another condition for a living will. It only goes into effect if the patient has an end-of-life condition with no chance of recovery. If there's a meaningful chance of recovery, a living will does not go into effect. In the case where it does go into effect, your having specified your end-of-life treatment choices will help guide the person you've designated as your healthcare agent. Now we come to the personal comfort wishes, wishes 3, 4, and 5. You would not find these in an advance directive drawn up by an attorney. They are unique to 5 wishes. They are explicitly designed to help guide families in how to comfort their loved ones. The first 2 wishes, as I said earlier, are legal advance directive. These 3 wishes, 3, 4, and 5, are not legally binding on healthcare providers. They are guidance. They are what I would like if it's possible. Wish 3 has a bulleted list of different things that people find comforting. And you can cross out what you don't agree with and write in anything that you want to include. So, for example, on this list, at the top of the second column, I wish to be massaged with warm oils as often as I can be. When I read that, I almost laughed out loud. I thought, well, that just is a little over the top. I crossed that one out. But you know what? When my mother read this, she thought that sounded great. She definitely left that in. So for each of these things, you have to decide what's important to you and what your preferences are. I'm going to give you a minute to just look through this list. Now let's move on to Wish 4. Wish 4 helps you think about and share how you want others to interact with you and what you find emotionally and spiritually comforting. This might include any music that you would like playing in your room, who you would like to have visit you, like members of your faith community. And it lists these bulleted ideas to help you think about what matters most to you. Once it's completed, it becomes a statement of what really matters to you, what is important to you, and it helps guide your loved ones so they can support your personal dignity at the end of life. Again, I'm just going to give you a minute to look through this list. And now Wish 5. The first half of Wish 5 is on the screen, and I'll show you the second half in just a moment when people have had a chance to look at this one. Wish 5 lists some ideas to help you think about what you would like to communicate. It includes many of the things that matters most to people at the end of life, things like forgiveness, grief, love. It also provides guidance on practical matters having to do with your memorial or your burial. And once it's completed, it can be really meaningful for the people who matter most to you and can be a comfort for people who are grieving. you may find that there are things that you want to include here. For example, my mother decided what hymns she wants played at her funeral. She decided what readings she wants included in her funeral. So she just had a second page that she wrote out and added into the booklet. You can absolutely do that. You can add as many pages as you need to make sure that everything that you want included here is included. Again, I'm going to give you a minute to look through this list. Here's the rest of Wish 5. The copy of 5 Wishes that those of you who have registered will be able to pick up at the Pennington Library is yours to use. Excuse me. And if you are not one of those people, then you can go to 5wishes.org and order a copy. They're $5 each. There is an electronic version as well that can be filled out online and updated as often as you want, and that one is $8. Before you finalize your 5 wishes, I would encourage you to discuss your wishes with the important people in your life. As I said earlier, the conversations are at least as important as the document. And as you talk through your wishes and preferences with your loved ones, they might have some input for you, some feedback for you that get you thinking more deeply and considering some of the things that you might not have thought about. You'll also want to talk to the person that you want to name as your healthcare agent, as well as your 2 backup choices, and make sure they are willing and able to play that role and that they understand what you want. And then you fill out the document, you follow the directions for signing it. You'll want to have 2 witnesses with you when you sign the document, and they will also sign it. As the slide says, they don't need to read your wishes. They just need to attest that they saw you sign the document and that they know it was you. And the instructions specify who qualifies to be a witness. In 4 states, your 5 wishes needs to be notarized to be legally binding, but New Jersey is not one of those states. The 5 states are Missouri, North Carolina, South Carolina, and West Virginia. So once you've completed and signed the document, you can make as many copies as you need to ensure that everyone who ought to have a copy has one. Of course, that includes the person that you've designated as your healthcare agent, as well as your backup choices. But it also includes your doctor, members of your family, anyone else who is likely to weigh in on your care or have a role seeing that your wishes are fulfilled. Now, you want to keep a list of everyone you've given a copy to in case you decide to make revisions. You'll know who to get a replacement copy to. If you go to the hospital or any other kind of care facility, make sure you take a copy with you. My mother had surgery about 1.5 years ago, and the admitting nurse asked me, "Does your mother have an advance directive?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "Did you bring it with you?" And I said, "No." I had not even thought of that, but I won't make that mistake again. As for the original, you'll want to put it somewhere safe, but you don't want to hide it or put it somewhere where only you can get to it. That kind of is beside the point. So no safe deposit boxes. Near the back of the booklet, there's this template for a wallet card that you can fill out and carry with you that specifies that you have a 5 wishes document and where it can be found. So you fill this out, you make a photocopy, you take You can cut it out and laminate it if you can, but even if you can't, put it in your wallet near your health insurance card. And then if you want to, you can make a PDF of your 5 wishes and upload it to mydirectives.com, which is a digital registry for storing advanced care plans and directives. So that's the presentation, the formal part of the presentation, and now the time to check in on questions. So Nazla, are you going to be telling me what questions are, or should I be looking in the chat?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for that presentation. It was very clear, and it was great to see everything broken down visually, and with your commentary, it made it all very easy to understand. At this point, I'm looking in the chat and I'm not seeing any questions, so I do invite anyone to put your questions in the chat that you have for Paul. The one question we have is from Susie, and she's asking, apparently she doesn't live near the library, and she's just wondering if we can send her papers via email.
Well, I can't send the 5 wishes document via email because it's a paper document and I'm not authorized to reproduce it electronically. I can certainly send the other handouts electronically, but then Susie would need to go to 5wishes.org and order a copy of 5 Wishes for herself.
Okay. So that's your answer, Susie. You can contact me if you have any further questions, Susie, at nrex@penningtonlibrary.org. I just had a few questions, if you don't mind fielding a few from me. Just one moment, there is one question about where our library is located in the chat. We are at 30 North Main Street in Pennington. I'm just putting that. We are connected to the Pennington Borough administrative offices, and the police station is around the corner from us. So my question for you is, we saw how straightforward the 5 Wishes document is. It really does lay things out wonderfully. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice on, if there's a barrier for people when they actually sit down to fill it out. What can they do to get past that? Do you find that, do you have any advice for them for getting started?
Before I get into that, let me just go to the next slide, which has my contact information as well as that of 5wishes.org. For anybody who has anything come up after this presentation, they're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll just leave that on the screen while we talk. So I want to make sure that I understand the question. Is this about kind of how to get started?
Yes.
Well, I think that the document itself, 5 Wishes itself, does a great job of walking you through that process. So in addition to the content that I displayed on the screen, there is preamble content as well as additional guidance to really give people a full view of everything they need to think about and everything they need to do. In addition, one of the handouts has a real step-by-step detailing of all the things that you would want to do in order to make use of 5 Wishes. So that includes things like reading through the document, and then all the things that you want to think about, the conversations that you want to have with people. I think that one of the best ways to get started is to read through the document and get clear about the decisions that you need to make. You don't need to necessarily make all those decisions, but you really want to acquaint yourself with the kinds of decisions that you need to make. And then start having conversations with your loved ones about what your wishes might be. And you might find that that's a great opportunity for them to share what their wishes are as well, so that everybody starts getting in communication with each other in the family about this very important topic.
Right. It's about starting the conversation.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. We do have another question in the chat. A patron is asking, I have a living will prepared by my attorney. If I complete the 5 wishes directive, will that supersede my living will? May I keep them both?
The answer to the first part of that is yes. If you fill out 5 wishes, then the living will, i.e. wish 2, will supersede the living will that you've already completed because it will have been signed later. If you don't want to supersede your original living will, then you can simply make sure that wish 2 says the same thing that your earlier living will says. On the other hand, you may find that after reading through 5 wishes, there are some revisions that you would make to the living will that you made out previously. Either way, you can make sure that the one that takes precedence, which is the one that you sign last, reflects what you really want.
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you. So another question I have is, do you have any advice if a family member flatly refuses to have this conversation when you bring it up?
It's a great question, and it's a very valid question. Many people I've talked to have told me that they've tried to have this conversation with their offspring, and their offspring have rebuffed them. They don't want to have that conversation. They don't think it's necessary. Oh, Mom, it's way too early to talk about that, or whatever. There are a couple of possibilities. One is if you go to theconversationproject.org, there are some really interesting videos. Especially, one that I especially like is a story that was run on ABC News about not 5 wishes in particular, but about advance directives and about making your wishes known to your loved ones. It's a really heartwarming and really resonant video. And so you could show that or send that to the people that you want to have conversations with to get them into a more receptive frame of mind. Some of the people I know who have run up against a bit of a barrier trying to share their wishes with other family members have had more success by starting out by asking those other family members what their wishes would be. And under those circumstances, how would they want to be taken care of? And then that ultimately leads them around to being able to share their own wishes. There may be better advice out there, and I hope people find their way, but those are the things that I've heard about that work.
That's great. Thank you. I'm just going to type in the chat. It's what's the name of the website one more time?
5 wishes, all one word, .org.
And the conversation one?
It's the www.theconversationproject.org.
Project.org. All right. I did type it into the chat.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, that
I'll
seemed
never
like a
forget
great
that,
resource. Seemed like a great resource.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna keep peppering you with questions, unless we get some more in the chat. I have one final one. If the audience leaves tonight with just one key mindset shift or action item about advanced care planning, what do you hope that is?
I would hope that it is a recognition that the most important thing is the conversation. Yes, it's important to make these decisions. It's important to document these decisions. It's important to make sure that our healthcare providers and the hospital that we might end up in have copies. And by the way, you can ask your local hospital to add your 5 wishes or any events directed to your patient record. But I would say the most important thing is the conversation we have with our doctors and with our loved ones about what our wishes are. That's the thing that's going to carry the day.
Excellent. Well, Paul, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time about this important work that you're doing with Advanced Care Directives and 5wishes.org in collaboration with the Hopewell Valley Senior Services. We're happy that all of our patrons could join us this evening. If you have any questions, you can contact either me at the library or Paul had put up his information before. Paul, again, thank you so much.
Nazla, it was great. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who joined this evening.
All right. I wish everyone a great night. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.